Hi guys, welcome to Digitalized Learning. We are continuing to second chapter of 10th bio, that is control and coordination. Now what does coordination means? The ability to use different parts of body together smoothly. Now moving forward to our presentation, we have contents which includes introduction, coordination in animals and coordination in plants. Now introduction. Organisms move in response to various kinds of stimuli like heat, light, nutrients or food, etc. For example, when we touch a hot body, we feel heat and move our hands behind. All the activities in animals are controlled and coordinated by the nervous and endocrine system. Now, how does we feel that the object is hot and how we move our hands behind? It has a mechanism in it. These mechanisms are controlled by nervous and endocrine glands. Hormones are chemical messengers which assist the nervous system in carrying out various functions. They are secreted by endocrine glands. Now, what are hormones? The chemical messengers which help in functioning of various systems in our body. But where are these hormones secreted from? It is secreted by the endocrine glands. Endocrine glands will study it in detail about in coming slides. Hormones in plants coordinate the movements. Plants also have hormones. They coordinate the plant's movements. Now moving on to coordination in animals, we have nervous system. In nervous system, we have neurons. Neuron is the structural and functional unit of nervous system. Each neuron has three main parts. That is, first is the dendrites, second is the cyton or so-called soma or the cell body, and the third is the axon. Dendrites receive impulses from other neurons. Here you can see the dendrites. Then cyton or the soma processes the impulse. Here is the cyton or the so-called soma. Then axon transmits the impulse either to other neuron or to muscles or glands. Now axon may be myelinated or non-myelinated. Now what is myelinated and non-myelinated? Myelinated is where myelin sheath is present and non-myelinated is where myelin sheath is not present. Then the impulse transmission is faster in myelinated neuron. Now here is a diagram of myelinated neuron where the myelin sheath is present. You can see the dendrites, then the soma, then here the nucleus, then the axon, then the myelin sheath, and then the nerve endings. Now here, we have reflex action. Reflex action is a sudden involuntary reaction of the body in response to stimuli. It means it is an involuntary response, or you can say a sudden reaction. Then moving on to reflex arc, it is a path followed by electrical impulse during a reflex action. For example, we can give an example of reflex action, that is touching a hot body. The impulse travels from the receptor organ to the spinal cord or the brain. First, the impulse travels from the hand to the spinal cord. Then it is processed there and the information is brought back to the concerned muscle to carry out the action. Now from the spinal cord, the impulse is processed and then it moves to the muscles. Then it gives a signal to the hands that the object is hot, you have to move the hand behind. Then thus the receptor organ, sensory or afferent neuron, interneuron, motor or efferent neuron and the efferent effector organ are components of reflex arc. Here is a reflex arc example that a human is touching a hot object, then the signal moves to the first the signal moves to the spinal cord and then the spinal cord processes the signal and then it gives the signal to the hand that it is a hot object, you have to move your hand behind. Then moving on to central nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of brain and the spinal cord. Now moving on to functions of different parts of the brain. That is, cerebrum is responsible for reasoning, logic, emotions, speech, memory, visual processing, recognition, or auditory and taste stimuli, etc. Now here is the diagram. Here you can see a spinal cord. Then cerebellum regulates and coordinates body movements, posture and balance. Pons relays the signal from hindbrain to forebrain. Now here is the pons, the hindbrain and the forebrain. Then medulla oblongata controls all involuntary movements like vomiting, sneezing, yawning, heartbeat, breathing, blood pressure, etc. Medulla oblongata continues as the spinal cord which runs through the vertebral column and it controls reflex action. Now here is a diagram of the CNS, central nervous system. You can see the forebrain, midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata, spinal cord and the hindbrain. Now moving on to protection of CNS. The brain is protected by three layers. The bony skull, that is the cranium, then a cerebrospinal fluid, the CSF fluid which we say, then the meninges in which dura mater, arachnoid and pia mater are present. Now moving on to coordination in plants. Animals have a nervous system for controlling and coordinating the activities of body, but plants have neither a nervous system nor muscles. So how do they respond to stimuli? When we touch a leaf of the chuimui, or we say the touch me not plant, they begin to fold up and droop. When a seed germinates, the root goes down, the stem comes up into the air. What happens? The leaves of the sensitive plant move more quickly in response to touch. Now, further, we have immediate response to stimuli. Let us think about the first kind of movement, such as the sensitivity of plant. Since no growth is involved in this, the plant must actually move its leaf in response to touch. But there is no nervous tissue nor any muscle tissue. How does the plant detect the touch? And how do the leaves move in response? The plants also use electrical, chemical means to convey this information from cell to cell. But unlike in animals, there is no specialized tissue in plants for the conduction of information. Now, here we have the diagram of a touch me not plant. Here you can see the person is touching the leaves of the plant. As the person touches the leaves, it droops up and folds its leaves. Then moving on next to the growth independent movements. The movements which are not growth related are called nastic movements. These movements occur in response to environmental stimuli, but the direction of response is not dependent on the direction of stimulus. The movement in touch me not plant is thigmonastic movement, matlab in response to touch. Then moving on to growth dependent movements, we have the movements which are growth related are called tropic movements. Movements which were growth independent were known as nastic. Now growth related are known as tropic. These movements occur as response to environmental stimuli and the direction of response is dependent on direction of stimulus. For example, phototropic movement. Photo means light. Then geotropic movement. Geo means gravity. Then chemotropic movement. Chemo means chemical. Hydrotropic movement. Hydro means water. Thigmotropic movement. Thigmo means touch. So we have 5 topics: phototropic movement, geotropic movement, chemotropic movement, hydrotropic movement and thigmotropic movement. Moving on to our first, that is phototropic movement. Movement of plant parts in response to light is known as phototropic. Now towards light it is positive movement and away from light it is negative movement. Here is a diagram. The plants, the roots move away from the light. Matlab it is negative. It shows negative phototropism, and the stems move towards the light, so it shows positive phototropism. Now next is geotropism. Movement of plants in response to Earth's gravitational force is known as geotropism or gravitotropism. Now towards gravity it is positive geotropism, and away from gravity it is negative geotropism. Here is the diagram. Gravity. Positive tropism shows the root and stem shows the negative geotropism. Then moving on to chemotropism. Movement of plant parts in response to chemical stimuli is known as chemotropism. Towards the chemical it is positive chemotropism. Away from the chemical it is negative chemotropism. Growth of pollen tube towards the ovule is positive chemotropism. Moving on to hydrotropism. Movement of plant parts in response to water or moisture. Now, towards water, it is positive hydrotropism. Away from water, it is negative hydrotropism. Now, here you can see a pot which contains water and the root moves to the pot. Matlab, it shows positive hydrotropism because it is moving towards the water. Then next is THIGMOTROPISM. Movements in response to touch is called THIGMOTROPISM. Towards touch it is positive THIGMOTROPISM and away from touch it is negative THIGMOTROPISM. Now tendrils move in the direction of touch, so it shows positive THIGMOTROPISM. Now next is the endocrine system. Here you can see the endocrine glands in humans. First one, A1 is the males and the B1 is the females. Now in males we have hypothalamus, then the pineal gland, pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, the thymus, pancreas, adrenal glands and the testes. And in females we have hypothalamus, pineal gland, pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, thymus, pancreas, adrenal glands and the ovary. Now next, endocrine glands are ductless glands which secrete hormones into the bloodstream in humans. Now we have the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is a pea-sized gland located at the base of brain. Here was the picture of a pituitary gland. Here you can see the pituitary gland. Here. Then it is the master gland as it controls the secretion of all other endocrine glands. Now it secretes growth hormone, the pituitary gland. If the growth hormone is low secreted, then the person may be dwarf. And if high secretion is then of the pituitary glands, then the growth hormone, then the person will be gigantism and acromegaly in adults. Then thyroid gland. It is a butterfly shaped gland located in the throat. Here the picture. Here is a thyroid gland. Here you can see. Here. It secretes the hormone thyroxine, which regulates the metabolism of body. Iodine is required to synthesize thyroxine in the body. In case of iodine deficiency, undersecretion of thyroxine leads to goiter. Now here, deficiency of iodine. A thyroid gland secretes iodine, and if the iodine is secreted in very low quantity, then it leads to goiter. Then pancreas. It is a leaf-like gland present behind the stomach in the abdomen. Now here you can see the picture of the pancreas. Here is the pancreas. It is an endocrine as well as exocrine gland. As an endocrine gland, it manufactures two hormones, insulin and glucagon. Both these hormones act antagonistically and regulate the sugar level in blood. As an exocrine gland, it secretes enzymes to break down proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, and nucleic acid in food. Insufficient amount of insulin from pancreas leads to diabetes. Now, if insufficient amount of insulin is secreted from the pancreas, it leads to diabetes. Now we have the adrenal gland. Occurs in pair above the kidney. Now here in the diagram, you can see the adrenal gland. Here are the two adrenal glands above the kidney. Here one and the second. It decreases in size with age, secretes the hormone adrenaline which help in fight and flight response. Also secretes noradrenaline. Now the adrenaline hormone which is responsible for fight and flight. Now next is gonads or the gametes which produces the gametes, that is the testes in males and the ovaries in females. Now gonads are the gamete producing organs, testes in males and ovaries in females. Now here you can see in the diagram the gonads. Here the testes in males and here the ovaries in females. The testes produce the male hormone testosterone and ovaries produce the female hormone estrogen and progesterone. Testosterone and estrogen help in producing gametes and are responsible for sexual characteristics in males and females respectively. Progesterone in the pregnancy hormone. Now this was the end of the chapter and end of our presentation. Thank you. If you liked our video, please like our video and subscribe our channel so that you can get the latest updates.